Hello, everybody. I'm Katie.
And I'm Candace.
And welcome to Dead in the Heart of Texas, a Texas true crime and paranormal podcast.
Yeah. Welcome back. So, we had to take last week off because we had some technical difficulties.
Some. Just some.
By some, I mean a lot. Like, to the point where I had to buy a new laptop.
She loves you guys. She loves you guys.
Y'all deserve to have a good quality podcast that has episodes come out when we say they're supposed to come out. So I'm really sorry that we keep dropping the ball. But hopefully we're gonna get back on the right track with this. Real quick, basically, like what happened. Katie and I actually recorded an episode together. In person, we saw each other face to face. We even filmed a video. And then basically the audio that we had recorded, it like our microphones picked up each other, so it was like really echoey. So it didn't sound good. And then I was like, well, good thing we filmed it. My laptop was like, no, it's okay. I'm not gonna export this video no matter how many times you try to export it. Anyways, that's that's what happened. But yeah, we're back on track. I kind of feel like it was divine intervention because I wasn't really happy with the story I had last time. So I changed it. So you're gonna get a whole new story.
They won't even know they missed the old one. That'll be great.
No, they won't. Do you have any life updates you want to talk about?
I've been working remotely for the past 3 days. An 8 to 4:30 job. So basically 9 to 5.
How's that been?
It's chill. I think you'd like it. Well, it's chill so far because it's like orientation and then training for a month. Because it's like, I'm a roadside assistance agent. I won't say which company for more privacy. But anyway, so far it's mostly videos, going through slides, and listening to about 20 or so people have computer problems. So while waiting for 12 hours a day, I do housework and get paid for it.
Sounds fun.
And no, I do like actually put on day clothes. I don't just stay in pajamas. Although sometimes I might. You never know.
Just depends on the day.
No, I am trying to be conscious about, like, making sure there's some sort of separation, because that's looking. People are saying we might have online classes this fall, so I might be here more 24/7.
Yeah, I think yesterday Texas announced that they're gonna have online classes at least for the first 3 weeks of the semester. So yeah, I could use some. I did a workout today, and it kicked my butt. I'm very tired.
Yay!
Yay! But I'll just drink some water and stay hydrated instead.
Woo woo! Drink water, guys, because we can't really do anything else.
Nope, that's all I can do nowadays.
Alrighty, I kick us off with some very happy true crime stories. Alright, guys. Well, for those who are dying of suspense, today I am going to be covering the Candyman. But for those of you who are thinking, you already did the Candyman, I'm doing another Candyman.
Ooh.
AKA Dean Corll, AKA the Houston Mass Murders.
Ooh, that doesn't sound good.
I said it was cherry, and I was lying. Okay. So let's start some background on Dean Corll. So basically, he was born on December 24th, 1939, Christmas Eve, in Fort Wayne, Indiana. His parents were named Arnold Edwin Corll and Mary Emma Robinson. And I feel like I have a lisp right now. I've been watching too much Bob's Burgers. Okay. And he did have a sibling named Stanley Corll and a sister named Joyce. So, growing up, Dean's parents never really had a happy marriage, and they fought, like, all the time. And his father was known to be a quotation mark disciplinarian. An asterisk, I put an asterisk here, although it is unknown whether his father's disciplinary actions were abusive or normal for the time, because it was 1940s. So take that with that what you will. And his parents eventually divorced 2 times. So after the first separation, they tried to make it work again, and just didn't work. And so after they divorced the second time, Dean's mom remarried a traveling salesman, and that brought this lovely family to Vidor, Texas. So, another fun note, unlike other known serial killers, you can basically insert any name in your head right now. Let's come on. Dean's behavior in grade school and high school didn't really foreshadow anything of what would come. So he seemed like a very normal kid. He did keep to himself, but he had good grades and was generally, polite. So no red flags there, right? However, it was his mother's candy shop that would become the nexus of this seemingly, quotation mark again, normal American boy, or the normal American boy that he was in the 1950s, versus who he would become by 1973. And I'm giving Candace weird expressions to figure out more. So, and let me just say now, by 1973, this seemingly normal American boy had murdered, mutilated, sexually assaulted, not in order, at least 30 boys.
Oh, so, just your average guy next door.
Yeah, typical American boy.
Average American psycho.
People are gonna hate me if they don't like sarcasm. And let me just say again, he had sexually assaulted, brutalized, and mutilated at least 30 boys, and I forgot to say, in just 2.5 years.
Dang.
Yeah. So let's get down to this family business of the candy factory. So, in the mid-1950s, Dean's mom and stepfather started a candy company known as Pecan Prince. And so the business actually started out in the garage, and Dean and his brother were brought on to help out from the very beginning of the business. His stepdad, who, like I said, was a traveling salesman, would sell candy along his regular sales route, and Dean's mom managed the business side of things. And Dean and his brother were the ones operating the machines that actually made the candy. So in 1963, Dean's mom divorced the traveling salesman. And at this point, Dean had actually graduated from high school, and he moved back to Indiana for 2 years to take care of his recently widowed grandmother. He eventually did return to Texas to help his mother with the candy business, and by this point, she had moved to Houston, Texas. So, when Dean moved back, the family candy company had changed from Pecan Prince to just the Corll Candy Company. And the business was in the Houston Heights area, and Dean's mom named Dean the vice president of the company, and his younger brother the secretary-treasurer. So, pretty basic starter jobs, I guess, for typical American boys.
Right. See some nepotism going on.
Oh, just you wait.
Oh, no.
So basically, Dean worked at his mother's candy company pretty regularly. Okay, apart from about 10 months when he left to serve in the U.S. Army in 1964, of which he was honorably discharged under a hardship exception. And another side note, while Dean was in the Army, it was reported that was when he had his first homosexual encounter, and no, none of the research specified whether it was, two-sided. Consensual.
Consensual?
Yeah. I lost my word for a second.
Katie read my mind.
Consensual.
No worries.
So, when I said before that there weren't any warning signs growing up, there were some warning signs later. So, basically, right after the newly formed Corll Candy Company took off, a young teenage boy who worked at the company one day met with Dean's mom, and keep in mind that Dean's probably in his 20s at this point. And so the boy basically told Dean's mom that Dean had made unwanted sexual advances toward him. Instead of looking into it, this boy got fired.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
Well then.
Yeah.
That's just
dandy. And get this, there were other boys around the factory as well. Most of them were runaways or other troubled youths. Just a fun fact, I don't think in any of my research did I find about any females who were hired for the company, just teenage boys.
And wait, was he in charge of hiring people? Who was in charge of hiring people?
I assume the mom, but I think Dean probably... Okay. Dean, by this point I can say, was known as the Candyman because of his access to candy, and so I feel like he probably was like, hey, if you need a job, come to my family's business. We need people for the factory. Not you, girls. Sorry.
Women can't work.
But anyway, this boy got fired, and I honestly didn't seem like Dean's mom thought anything of it or even considered the possibility that this was true. And so the little complainer had to go. So, regarding the life around the factory, at some point, Dean had installed a pool table, and it was supposed to, quote, provide a place for the boys to hang out, and so they'd have a safe and fun place outside of school. Dean would openly flirt and try to befriend pretty much all the boys there. So among these boys was 12-year-old Davis Brooks, a 6th grader who, like many of the other boys, had been introduced to Dean with the offer of free candy and a place to hang out, aka the pool table. So, Dean began grooming Davis Brooks, and over the period of 2 years, he actually began to sexually abuse him. And so basically, different research put it different ways, but he bribed Davis for oral sex. And he exchanged it for, gifts, money, you name it.
Starting at 12 years old?
Yep. 20-something-year-old paying, a 12, 14-year-old for oral sex.
Oh, man. Alright.
Yep. So, yeah. So let's talk about the beginning of this crime spree. So, Jeffrey Conan, a freshman at the University of Texas, Austin, was the first known victim, and he was murdered in 1970. Jeffrey Conan had been hitchhiking back to Houston from UT for, I think, just vacation or summer or something like that, and it is believed that he was likely picked up by Dean with the offer of a ride to Jeffrey's parents' house. And it is known that Dean actually lived very close to the intersection where Jeffrey Conan was last seen. So, around this time, Davis Brooks, you remember him? Basically the 14-year-old who was,
Yeah.
Anyway, he actually discovered Dean raping 2 boys in his home. And later, Dean did tell Davis Brooks that he killed them. And to buy Brooks' silence, Dean bought him a Chevrolet Corvette and offered him around $200 for each boy that he brought to Dean.
Oh, so now he's bringing him into the business as well, so to speak.
Yep. And so, needless to say, Brooks accepted this offer. And, oh, that's fun, my font randomly changed in the formatting. I don't know why. Let's see. So, Brooks accepted the offer, and the partnership began. So, one of the boys that Brooks brought to Dean was named Elmer Wayne Henley. And I don't know if any of you have seen the show Mindhunter. I've only seen 2 episodes out of this case. But he is depicted by an actor from Game of Thrones, but he wasn't that well known, right?
He was the guy who played young Ned Stark. I think he was in 2 scenes, maybe?
Yeah.
It was a flashback.
I've never seen Game of Thrones. And I'm sorry.
You've got HBO Max.
Yeah.
Watch it.
Well, I'm so tired all the time now, though, because I don't do that much, but I feel like I'm in a work mentality.
I feel that. It's you sit all day and you work, which somehow is just as, well, I'm not going to say that, never mind. But yeah, and then you do your workouts, And by the end of the day, you just want to chill and not put too much thought into anything.
Fun fact, I think I want to start getting up, because my work shift starts at 8, so I think I want to start getting up at like 6 to just get my workout out of the way, because I'm too tired.
That'd be smart. Maybe I'll start doing that.
Oh, we can call each other. Just kidding, we're doing that. Anyway, back to this, cheery tale. So, Elmer Wayne Henley was brought to Dean as an intended victim, but Dean took a liking to Henley. And basically, he gave him the same offer as he gave Brooks. Like the offer of like around $200 per victim, or they use the term bounty. And at first, Brooks was like, no, I can't do that. Not Brooks, sorry. Henley was like, no, I'm not interested in doing that. But a few weeks later, he changed his mind due to financial hardship, and he just had to make money to take care of his family. And I guess $200 for human life seemed like a decent way to make a living. I don't know.
Yeah. Like,
so
I don't even know. I'm not going to joke about that.
Yeah. So, a trio was formed. I'll just say that. So, let's talk about the logistics, or the method, modus operandi, however you want to say it. So, okay, you guys probably figured this out, but Dean targeted boys between the ages of 12 and 20. And, his victims were either acquaintances of Henley and Brooks, so, in other words, they chose their friends, and people they called acquaintances to be the victims, or they were former workers of the Corll Candy Company. So the three boys would use Dean's white van to lure boys to come with them, either using candy, alcohol, partying, or, weed or anything, just to get them in the van. And, yeah.
Yeah. So this is where the white van...
The creepy white van? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of what the word is for that, like the creepy white van.
Child molester van? Is that it?
Yeah, like, there's a word.
Child abduction van? Creepy van? That's what I call it.
Like when there's a stigma attached to something, like...
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, but
it'll come to me. I'm gonna shout it out when it does, so sorry.
Just do it. Okay, so basically, once the boy actually got into the van, Dean... Stereotype, yes. Okay. So basically, once the unsuspecting victim got into the vehicle, Dean, Henley, and Brooks would, in fact, take them to one of the boys' apartments or house, and I think basically they would, like, party. I'm quoting, but only Candace can see me. So basically they would let party for a little bit, but only until the victim passed out, and then the three would bound and gag each victim through various methods, and when they woke up, they would be on Dean's torture board.
What's his torture board?
I don't really know how to describe it, because I didn't really want to look up images. But basically, it was like some kind of like hardwood board, and the boys would be tied up or pinned on it so they couldn't move.
Okay, I'm kind of picturing like the thing at the carnivals where someone's attached to it and they spin the wheel and they throw knives. Except it doesn't spin, maybe?
Yeah! Something. I really hope that this didn't inspire that. But more on that later. So basically, along with the torture, Dean would force his victims to write postcards or notes to their families saying they were in fact okay. After doing that, the three boys would basically tie up the victim to the torture board so they couldn't leave, and the three would rape the victim, torture, you name it.
Jesus.
And so, just to clarify, all three boys were active in doing this part. And after they were done, the victims were either strangled or shot to death, but regardless, none of the boys who brought to Dean ever left. And after after killing the victims, the trio would then wrap up the bodies in plastic sheeting and dispose of them in one of, and I'm going to just say this slowly, they would dispose of them in one of Dean's 3 mass graves.
One of 3.
And he had 3 mass graves at his disposal, and that's a very sick sentence. But basically, these graves were located, one of them was beneath Dean's boat shed in southwest Houston. There was another one near Lake Sam Rayburn, and another one in High Island Beach. And just another side note, Dean was known to keep, quotation marks again, trophies of his victims, and he seemed to be very particular about taking their car keys.
Okay, so there's the trophies.
Yep. So, they did this, and it didn't seem like they were ever really going to stop. Basically, other families of the missing boys started to notice that something was going wrong. I don't think they realized the extent of what was happening, but they know, like, my boy wouldn't just leave a note and not call back or anything like that. So let's talk about the beginning of this trio's downfall. Okay. So, one of the victims was named Mark Scott, and he was only 17 when he disappeared on the evening of April 20th, 1972. And his parents were freaking out, as is expected, and they reported him missing after calling all his classmates, friends, and neighbors, and nobody knew anything. So a couple of days later, Scott's family received a postcard, reportedly from Mark, saying that, hey, I'm fine, I just got a job in Austin that pays $3 an hour, so don't worry about me. And just side note, $3 an hour to live in Austin.
Yeah, like, then again, I don't know what inflation looked like, and I know rent was cheaper in Austin, but...
Yeah. But when
that raises some red flags.
Mm-hmm. So, it did, and this family did not believe this note at all. They were like, he wouldn't do that without saying goodbye, something's wrong. And this is just an example of a lot of the families who received this kind of note. And so, just like the rest of the families, Scott's family went to the police department, and this is another sick part of the story. The cops basically were like, oh, clearly your son is just a runaway. So they didn't really research it. So one parent, named Everett Waldrop, actually told a reporter after everything was discovered that he had to camp on the police department door for 8 months. And this was after the police had found the remains of his 2 sons.
His 2 sons?
Yeah, so this is a different one, but I found some actual, like, quotes from family members after the fact.
Okay, gotcha.
But this is mostly just to show, like, the police weren't really helpful, and it didn't seem like they really took anything that seriously at this point.
Yeah.
Basically, another person said that the police, whoever they talked to, would always be like, why are you down here? You know your boys are runaways. So, just keep that in mind. So, other families of Dean's victims reported basically the same thing. However, it is important to note that in Texas at this time, which is about the early 1970s, it was not illegal for a child to run away from home. So, the chief of police of the Houston Police Department claimed there was nothing they could do to help them. Although, I don't really believe that. Basically, they just didn't want to. Kind of a happy ending for this instance. This chief was, in fact, voted out of office after everything goes down.
Oh, interesting.
So yeah, basically, let's get to this trio's ending. On August 8th, 1973, after, like I said, 2.5 years and 28 known murders, Dean finally turned on Henley. I don't know where Davis Brooks was at this point. My understanding is that not all 3 were involved in every instance. But basically, Henley, tried to lure his friend Tim Curley, and it was working. However, on the way, they ran into a woman named Wanda Williams. And she basically was like, hey guys, I can't really go home right now. There's some family problems. Can I hang out with you until it calms down? And they were like, okay. Basically, neither, as expected, neither Rhonda or Tim thought they were in any danger, and they thought they were just gonna go hang out. And when they got to Dean's apartment, all of them basically partied through the night. However, Henley said that when he woke up after passing out, he realized that he was tied with the other two on Dean's torture board. Yeah. And Dean was screaming at him because he was so mad that Henley brought a girl to the apartment. And he was like pointing his .22 caliber pistol at Henley and was saying, I'm gonna kill you, but first I'll have my fun. Oh wow, my autocorrect changed Henley to Kenley. So Henley basically begged Dean to untie him and is like, no, I'm sorry, I won't do it again. Please untie me, and then we can rape them and kill them together. And I guess he was convincing, and so Dean did untie Henley. And at this point, Rhonda had woken up and she was conscious, and she realized what they were gonna do. And she kind of looked at Henley and was like, wait, is this actually happening right now? And then Henley was like, yeah. And she was like, are you going to do anything about this? And something shifted in Henley. And just to note, after Dean had untied Henley from the torture board, he had set down his gun on a nightstand. Just a quote from Rhonda about what happens next. She said, after she was like, are you going to do anything about this? She says that Henley stood at her feet and just all of a sudden told Dean that this couldn't keep going on. He couldn't keep letting him kill his friends, and that it had to stop. Dean looked up, and he was surprised, so he started getting up and was like, you're not going to do anything to me. And then, without another word, and I'm assuming this conversation wasn't as calm as I just said it, and so, without another word, Dean Corll's rape, torture, and murder spree came to an end, as Henley shot him 6 times, killing him with his own gun. So, that was Dean Corll's ending. So let's get to the aftermath. After killing Dean, Henley untied the other two, and they convinced him to call the police. And shortly after, Henley and Brooks confessed to everything they'd done, and even showed the police where Dean's murder mass graves were. So within a week, investigators had found 17 victims buried in the boathouse, another 6 in the Bolivar Peninsula, and I'm not great at geography, so just know these are the 3 mass graves, and 4 more victims were buried in a woodland area at Lake Sam Rayburn. And just another thing, police didn't identify the 28th victim until 1983, and there's actually no telling how many others Dean might have murdered before Henley and Brooks came along. And so that's why, like at the beginning of this podcast, I was saying 30, but in here it's 28 because there's actually just no way to tell. Henley was convicted of 6 murders and sentenced to 6 life sentences. I don't know why I did that. Okay. And he is currently serving his time in prison. And Davis Brooks was convicted of 1 murder and received a life sentence as well. However, since then, Davis Brooks has actually died of 2019, COVID-19. Wow. So he died in prison. Yeah?
Of COVID-19. Wow. So
yeah, June 10th, 2020.
Pretty recent then.
Meanwhile, Henley was and is still incarcerated in Tennessee. And so, like I said, there are about 28 known victims to date of the trio, but there's no telling how many there are in actuality before Brooks and Henley came along. And it actually was until 2008 where all the bodies were identified correctly. Although, just know that there was actually a total of 44 missing Houston boys who went missing during the time period of the crime spree. So Dean Corll remained one of the most prolific serial killers of all time until 1978 with the, maybe not a rival, but basically until Ted Bundy and John Wayne Gacy. And each of these men were attributed with over 30 murders. And here's another, fun fact. John Wayne Gacy actually was inspired by Dean's torture board, having read about it in the paper. And The torture board inspired him to build his own, quote, rack after reading about the Houston mass murders. So, these guys sticking together.
Yikes. Well, that would be an interesting, loophole for a story one day, but,
Yeah!
God, yeah, John Wayne Gacy. He's a serial killer I know somewhat, but sick dude. Sick dude.
Well, if only he had his inspirations. So the last thing I'd like to do before moving on to Candace's exciting mystery story is read the list of victims. Because I feel like all they ever do is talk about the crime, and you need to remember who the victims were. So, as you listen to my lisp, here we go. So, this isn't exactly in the order. I don't want to, give the wrong precedent. So, the first one was Jeffrey Conan, age 18, and then I'll just read the other ones as they are. So we have Danny Yates, age 14, James Glass, 14, Jerry Waldrop, 13, his brother Donald Waldrop, 15, Randall Harvey, 15, David Hillegeest, 13, Gregory Mollywinkle, 16, Reuben Watson, 17, Willard Rusty Branch Jr., 17, Frank Aguirre, 18, Mark Scott, 17, Johnny DeLone, 16, Billy Bulch, 17, Stephen Sickman, 17, Wally J. Simono, 14, Richard Hembry, 13, Richard Kepner, 19, Joseph Lyles, 17, Billy Ray Lawrence, 15, Ray Blackburn, 20, Homer Garcia, 15, John Sellers, 17, Michael Tony Bulch, 15, Marty Jones, 18, Charles Carey Cobble, 17, and last but not least, James Dramala, 13.
Dang.
And that's the story of another Candyman.
So he was averaging about one kid a week, or not a week, a month, basically.
Yeah, for all we know, it could have been more, and the other two just were involved.
Oh, gosh,
yeah.
I hate that. Yeah.
But side note, there are more Candymen, so...
yeah, there's a Candy Lady in Texas, so...
Oh. I'm assuming it's not Willy Wonka's wife.
No, it is not. Alright, well, thank you for that.
The cheeriness of today.
Yes. Alright, I'll go ahead and I'll start mine. So, for my story today, I am taking you dead into the heart of Texas, and that I'm going to be covering the Texas State Capitol.
Ooh.
By the way, when I was doing research for the story, I kept reading Capitol, like the way Effie from the Hunger Games says it.
Oh gosh.
Is that her name?
Yeah.
The Capitol.
So you're gonna talk like her the whole time now, right?
Absolutely not. But alright, here we go. So, first off, I'm just gonna start off with a quote that I found from a website called AustinGhost.com, which I think is now one of my favorite websites for researching for stories, just because the writer's voice is something I aspire to have. I'm just gonna read it to you, so you can get a feel for what the article was like that I read. Alright. The Lone Star State has, along the years, fostered a reputation as not only being the good old boy, but the take-no-prisoners, you-talking-to-me, grit-dancing bronco, the sort of state that, in a staring competition, wouldn't even blink, even if his testicles were on fire and Maine was dropping scorpions down its back.
Huh.
Like, what? I don't know, I got a kick out of that. So, anyways... later on, the author continued to say, above all, Texas' blood-soaked history is prime mulch for ghosts and goblins.
Not wrong.
Love it. Love that imagery. Alright. So, the Capitol building for the state of Texas is located in Austin, for those of you who may not know. The building contains the offices and chambers of the Texas legislature and the governor of Texas. Pop quiz, who's the Texas governor?
Right now?
Yeah.
I want to say an idiot.
You're not wrong, but somewhere this governor just unsubscribed to us.
He was listening. Wear a mask.
It's your fault for opening up Texas too soon.
I don't think I can be blamed for that. I wear masks and I wash my hands.
No, I was talking to the governor, who obviously listens.
Sorry, guys, I'm not.
If he's a true Texan.
I'm up stamina to my stay-at-home job.
Deacon.
Yeah.
All right. You're gonna have to take a shot of coffee. It's Greg Abbott.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I was thinking, oh, what if I'm wrong? I'll look stupid. So I just looked dumb anyway. It's all good. I don't live there.
You get a shot of caffeine. Anyways, so the building was designed by architect Elijah E. Myers, who was paid $1,700 for his design. In 1881, it was constructed from February 1882 to about 1888, under the direction of an engineer named Reuben Lindsay Walker. So fun fact, they found the architect Myers through a national design competition. They chose his design because they liked its, Renaissance revivals kind of style, and the fact that it was inspired by not only the nation's capital, but that of, 15th century Italian architecture influence.
That's cool.
Yeah. Which, I mean, if you've ever seen the Texas Capitol, it is a beautiful building. And
I must have seen it growing up.
Yeah, the way you've seen it when we were coming back from the Mueller area.
Ah!
The city, so, fun fact, this isn't in my notes, so let me see if I can remember this correctly. The city of Austin has several viewpoints throughout the city where you can see the Capitol building perfectly. Now, in the I-35 overpass, right above, I think it's the Oakwood Cemetery, some cemetery, when you're, say, heading on South 35, you can see the Capitol building clearly on that overpass at one point. Which, when I worked in Austin, that was, my favorite part about my drive home, especially because sometimes I'd be going home and I would see the sunset. It was just beautiful. Alright, anyways. And the contractors that they hired, John and Charles Farwell, were paid in land instead of money, because at the time Texas had no money to give them, but they had a lot of land. We all know whose land that really was. But yeah, they were given a 3 million acre tract of land in the Texas Panhandle, which stretched across 10 counties from Lubbock to the Oklahoma Panhandle. Yeah, Oklahoma Panhandle, which became known as the XIT Ranch.
3 million acres.
Yes. So, not so fun fact, since the state of Texas had no money, they took advantage of the convict lease program, and basically had imprisoned people build the Capitol for free. In the book Haunted Austin, they said that after the Civil War, Texas was, quote, a lawless place, and they had a staggering amount of prisoners with no place to house them, and most of these prisoners were black people or, freed people. Freed. I put quotes around freed. Anyways. So basically, the private company would lease 1,000 convicts, and they paid the state 65 cents per convict per day. The company would be responsible for feeding and housing them. And so kind of like I mentioned earlier, half of the prisoners were black, and at the time, the state of Texas black population was only 25%. Or it only made up 25% of the population. Yeah. A lot of the time, these convicts were mistreated because the state did not regulate how these companies, treated them or took care of them. They're just like, oh, you're providing food? Yeah, some food. You got a roof over their head? Yeah, kinda. Alright, that's good. So, it took thousands of convicts 6 years to finish the Capitol.
Caffeine shot.
Yeah. And in 1993, an underground extension was finished in the building, which cost nearly $75 million. This time, I do not think they used imprisoned people for that. The building was added to the National Register of Historic Places in 1970, and in 1986, it became a National Historic Landmark. The building stands at 302.64 feet tall and is the 6th largest state capitol building and is even taller than the White House. In 2007, it was ranked 92nd in America's favorite architecture poll. And, fun fact, this building is actually the 3rd Texas state capitol building.
Oh.
And technically the 2nd on the grounds. I think it was Austin Ghost had this to say about the building. The building has an old world distinction to her. It's grand and majestic like everything in Texas. We like to show off. Pretty accurate.
Very accurate.
So, its predecessor was built in 1853 out of lumber from It was built out of lumber from Bastrop, but it was destroyed in the Great Capitol Fire of 1881. Spoiler alert, it catches on fire like 2 times. But also, this fire seemed very convenient because they had already had plans to make a new one. But basically what happened was that on a rainy day in November 9th, 1881, a fire broke out due to a faulty installation of a stovepipe. Once the stove was lit, it only took 2 hours to burn the whole building down.
Dang!
Yes. So kind of back to the Capitol building that we have now. It was made of Texas Hill Country limestone, which we all know that limestone attracts spirits. See Crescent Hotel. I don't really know what the scientific, I say that term loosely, scientific reasoning for limestone attracting spirits is.
It's pretty!
But I think it has something to do with that. They like it? No, I think it has something to do with the fact that, like, limestone is, like, sediment from being in water. I don't remember. Don't yell at me.
Just go with it's pretty. Nice and simple.
It's pretty. However, the limestone began to streak due to its high amount of iron in it. It also became kind of like a rusty color. So basically, when this type of limestone becomes exposed to the air, it would streak and make it look rusted. That was redundant. I repeated that twice. I am sorry.
No, you're not.
So anyways, I'm not. They decided to use red granite instead. The owners of Granite Mountain near Marble Falls graciously donated the red granite free of charge. So a train was used to transport this granite, and because of the bends in the mountain which the granite was transported from, the trains often derailed and dumped large amounts of red granite, which can still be seen today. However, there's no word on if, the train's derailment led to trains actually falling off the mountain or if any deaths occurred because of it. But just know that that could quite possibly be the case, and if that's the case, I can definitely see how some of this traumatic energy could attach itself to the red granite via stone tape theory. But anyways, the limestone is now hidden behind the walls and is the foundation of the building. On top of the dome sits a large statue known as the Texas Goddess, which, I'm not going to get into that, that's not really important. Well, I'll say it anyways.
Do it.
So, just kind of a fun fact, the Texas Goddess was installed with the assistance of a helicopter because it's 16 feet tall and weighs 2,000 pounds.
Only 2,000?
And this, of course, was a very recent installation that was not made in 1881. So, outside the doors of the Capitol are statues of Stephen F. Austin and Sam Houston that were sculpted by Elizabeth Ney, who was a famous female sculptor in a time when women weren't typically accepted or hailed as great artists.
Because they are now. It's better.
So the building was opened to the public on April 21st, 1888, which was the 52nd year anniversary of the Battle of San Jacinto, which won Texas its independence.
I remember that.
It was,
And San Jacinto. Okay. Candace, you sound so pretty when you sing. That wasn't me.
Thank you. I try. But yes, the building was dedicated to Texas State Senator Temple Houston, who was the son of Sam Houston on May 18th, 1888, and a week-long celebration that included parades, fireworks, live music, and that sort of stuff. Fun fact, Temple was upset that Houston wasn't made the capital of Texas, and he even tried to steal the state archives and bring them back home to Houston. But I guess he accepted this honor, of having the building, whatever. Words, can't think of it. Anyways, he accepted this honor because he thought the building was beautiful, saying, "The building fires the heat and excites the reflections in the minds of all. The architecture of a civilization that is most enduring feature, and by the structure shall Texas transmit herself to posterity." And so one last quote about the building before I get into the deaths and ghosts.
Oh, wasn't. Okay.
The building has an old, worn distinction to her. It's grand and majestic like... Oh, I already said that. Jesus, Candace.
Chloe Ting, guys.
I can't even blame Chloe Ting on these notes because I did these notes before. But anyways, on to the deaths and the ghosts. I only saw this, legend on one website, so I don't know how true it is. But back when the building was still a log cabin, essentially a, Native American scout, I don't know what tribe he was from, was having an affair with a Comanche maiden whose father was the chief. The couple allegedly met in one of the rooms of the old Capitol building when her father caught wind of what was going on, which he did not approve of the match, so he rushed to the Capitol where he found them. Enraged, he plunged his knife into the chest of the scout, killing him. His daughter, who was struck with grief at this point, pulled the knife out of her lover and, a la Romeo and Juliet, stabbed herself.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, this is Romeo and Juliet, isn't it? Isn't it?
Pretty much.
Oh, man.
Yeah. She died in her father's arms. And it is said that the maiden and the scout can still be seen wandering the grounds of the Capitol building.
Together, at least?
Yeah,
okay,
together.
Okay.
Many people have seen them holding hands and floating just above the grounds of the lawn.
That's sweet. They deserve that, at least. Come on.
Yeah, at least they have that. In 1903, a recently fired William Hill visited the Capitol to visit his ex-boss.
Ex-boss? Way out of his time.
He wanted to play some Halo.
Who wouldn't?
His ex-boss, Comptroller and Confederate veteran, Robert Love, in his office on the first floor. When he knocked at the door, Love was having a conversation with Reverend Cowden. Love let Hill in, and once Love and Cowden finished their conversation, he left. That was when Love took a seat at his desk, and Hill handed him a letter that read, "Dear Sir, public office is a public trust. Public offices are created for the services of the people, and not for the aggrandizement of a few individuals. The practice of bartering department clerkships for private gain is a disgrace to the public service, and in the nefarious traffic you are a record breaker. You have robbed the state's employees, and your incompetent administration has permitted others to rob the state. The man who, claiming to be Christian, deprives others of employment without cause is a base hypocrite and a tyrant. The greatest mind that has ever gave its wisdom to the world, the mind of all others most capable of umpiring the mutiny between right and wrong, said, 'You take my life when you do take from me the means by which I live. If that be true, you are a murderer of the deepest crimson hue. Although I cannot help myself before laying life's burdens down, I shall strike a blow, feeble though it be, for the good of my deserving fellow man. By the right against the wrong, for the weak against the strong, your truly, W. G. Hill.'"
Most of that letter, I'm like, I feel like that could be reused right now.
Yes, it could. Also, I wish we kind of still talked like this at some points, especially when he was like, "You are a murderer of the deepest crimson hue." But that set aside, it is not known how much Love read this letter because before he could even finish reading it, Hill pulled out a gun and shot him twice in the chest and left him for dead. Love's last words were, "I have no idea why he shot me. May the Lord bless and forgive him. I cannot say more." And then he croaked. Which is some southern hospitality crap right there, or the most passive-aggressive thing to ever say on your deathbed.
Ugh.
But yes. Another government employee, which I guess it must have been Cowden, I'm not too sure, heard the gunshots and saw Hill fleeing the office. He gave chase and caught up with Hill. A struggle ensued in which Hill was shot and killed.
Dang.
That is the only murder that has happened in the Capitol building. On misty days, people have reported seeing Love wearing a top hat and walking with his cane up the promenade to the Capitol. Many people have actually reported seeing him on the tours of the Capitol and not even notice until he disappears because he is usually a very solid apparition.
Dang.
On December 13th, 1922, two young men were assigned to repaint the inside of the dome. They were both high on the scaffold when suddenly the scaffold swung. 26-year-old Ed Wheeler lost his balance and fell through 3 levels of the rotunda, which is about 160 feet.
Yeah.
He crashed through the glass floor and into the basement where he died on impact.
Ah.
Now, no one's seen his ghost per se, but people say that every once in a while you'll get a whiff of, like, fresh paint when no one is actually painting. It's believed that Wheeler can't pass on until he finishes his job.
Ah.
And here we have our second fire. On February 6, 1983, a fire broke out in the apartment of then Lieutenant Governor William P. Hobby, Jr., killing one of his guests, a 23-year-old man who had been spending the night. This fire also injured 4 firemen and a policeman.
Ah.
Now, I took this part from the Haunted Austin book, but I feel like the author was low-key, pun not intended, roasting
Dang.
this poor dude. They were like, well, apparently instead of going out the bedroom door, this guy tried to, open the window that had been nailed shut to get out. Which, I mean, the fire he might have thought that the fire was right at the door. So I guess that's understandable. But anyways, the firemen couldn't break into the window, and they basically watched him burn to death.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. This room is now a Senate reception room. People report seeing handprints on the window, especially on high humidity days, and no matter how many times these windows are cleaned, these handprints appear. So it's like they can't get rid of it. This was the window that the firefighters had tried to break in order to save him. So they think it's the man still trying to get out.
Oh, wow.
The fire nearly destroyed the structure, and it heavily damaged the east wing, which led to them renovating the Capitol. And we all know that renovations can sometimes also lead to spirits.
Oh.
So outside this reception room is where the Senate cook and waiter Tim Matier, back in the 1970s was. He had stayed up late to clean up after an event when he saw a woman walk past him and turn a corner. So he thought he was alone, everyone had left, and he decided to follow this woman to see who she was.
Okay. Sorry.
He was like, well, I'm the only one here, who's this lady? So he turned the corner to follow her, and this led to, a small cubby area that was empty, and there was nowhere she could have gone. Several days later, he walked through the Senate press conference room, and he stopped dead in his tracks because there on the wall in front of him was a portrait of the woman he had seen a couple of nights before.
Oh.
It was the former Texas lady and wife of Governor Coke Stevenson. Her name was Fay Wright Stevenson, and she had lost her battle with cancer in 1942.
Wow.
She is said to be a benevolent spirit, and who, when she was alive, she enjoyed hosting parties at the Capitol, and the room that Matier had been in was actually her office at one point.
That makes sense.
Yeah. There's another woman who's been seen. She is known to be wearing a bright red or pink dress, although most people report her wearing a red dress. Mariah Reynolds? ? So she's been seen walking the halls of the 3rd floor near the office of former House Speaker Pete Laney. An employee thought he actually recognized this woman, so he went to follow her. Once again, she turned a corner that led to a dead end and just disappeared. Her identity is unknown, but it's presumed that she had an affair with a man who had an office on the same floor. It's also expected that she died after her lover had called off the affair, and so she either killed herself or she was disposed of after threatening to reveal his adultery. If you try and approach her, she will simply vanish right in front of your very eyes. She is blamed for people hearing whispers, giggles, and other phantom noises coming from a secret stairwell behind the office of her former lover, which is where they believe that they would hold their, little secret rendezvous. And then I lied. I take that back. There have been other ghosts that have occasionally been seen here. They're Sam Houston, Edmund Jackson Davis, and Andrew Hamilton. I couldn't find any, stories about Sam Houston or Andrew Hamilton. However, Edmund Jackson Davis is said to stare at people out of a window on the 1st floor until people move out of his eyesight. Which, it seems very funny to me unless he's staring at me, but he's just kind of very passive-aggressive, just staring at you till you get out of his view.
That'll be the ghost you encounter if you go.
Right.
He'll be, walking around, and all of a sudden he'll be like, I feel like someone's looking, and then we'll see him, and we'll get out of eyesight, and he'll be gone. I'm like, yep.
Just mean-mugging us. When I worked at South by, our building wasn't too far from the Capitol, so I would always have my lunch on the grounds of the Capitol. I enjoyed it so much, and apparently they do free ghost tours and just free tours in general during the day.
Missed it.
So if I would have known that, I probably would have caught a tour on my lunch break.
I'm disappointed in you.
I know. I'm sad that I didn't know that. Of course, they're not having tours right now because it's closed due to COVID.
So they can listen to our podcast instead.
Yes. So, one last story. Or, it's not really a story, it's just another sighting people have seen. So, basically on the grounds of the building, people have reported strange mists, orbs, and lights in the trees, and these are attributed to the convicts who lost their lives trying to build the Capitol. Yeah. Unfortunately, the number of how many people died trying to build it is undocumented, but given the heat and poor conditions, it's likely a lot of people died.
Man.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that. I feel like it was more of a history of how, the Capitol was built.
No, I thought it was interesting.
Yeah.
There's also some funny bits, it comes back at a ghost just to troll people
right.
out the window.
I'm just gonna stare at you from a window, what are you doing on my lawn?
I feel like I would just give people sarcastic comments, and they'd be like, what? And I'd be like, and then disappear.
Just the fact that, Love is seen on these tours, I hope, before they tell his story, he just kind of leans over to the person next to him and is like, oh, I left this part.
Looks over. Sees a picture of him. Wait, that guy was...
Yeah, I imagine people are just like, hey, what happened to that guy in the top hat? And they're like, what guy in the top hat? And it's like, the one in the group? Ugh.
Ooh, I got it. Ooh. No, they actually hire someone to do that every ghost tour. So they what? Crazy.
I'd believe it. It's just Ted Cruz out there trying to have some fun. Mm-hmm. Oh, did you see that picture of him not wearing a mask on an American Airlines flight?
Was it, recent? Because I feel like sometimes the media does use, old photos to try to make new points.
That's very good point to bring up. I don't know. I assumed it was, but I didn't do my research.
I don't know. I feel like a fun announcement. Take everything with a grain of salt. I feel like everybody has, an agenda these days. Although if that was recent, come on, man.
And something I always try to do, and then every once in a while I will share a story, and someone, messages me and very nicely tells me, hey, actually, that's not true.
This happened to me, too.
So, yeah. Yeah. Don't be a dick about it, though, if someone shares something that's not true.
Just put, you're so stupid. No, I would never.
Yeah,
I wouldn't
just
do that.
tell them you're an idiot.
You're an idiot and you shouldn't exist. That's what you do.
So this is actually a part 1.
Ooh.
Of a twofer I'm doing, so to speak. I also wanted to cover the governor's building.
So we're gonna hear that next time?
Yeah, we're gonna hear that next time. We'll hear some stories about Sam Houston, as well as a couple others.
Ooh.
I say that now, but hopefully I can find enough information about the governor's building.
And you'll hear more happy stories from me.
Can't wait. But yeah, with that being said, make sure to rate, comment, subscribe to us on YouTube. Do people rate anymore on YouTube?
Like or dislike?
I don't know. Like or dislike. You can find us at Dead in the Heart of Texas YouTube. You can email us at deadintheheartoftexas@gmail.com, and you can follow us on Twitter at DieTotPodcast. Twitter.com/DieTotPodcast. That's DITHOT podcast. And if you listen to us on Apple Podcasts, please remember to, give us a review. Tell your friends about us. It really helps with the show and getting us out there. Yeah, I think that's all I have. I need some coffee in me.
Yes, you do.
Yeah. All right. Do you have anything else you want to add?
I think I'm good.
Follow you on YouTube?
Yeah, follow me on YouTube, guys. Freckle to a T-D-E-A, unlike what I'm thinking.
Sometimes you just need some coffee. Mm-hmm. But yeah, alrighty. I hope y'all stay safe out there. And remember, y'all, don't let black-eyed kids lure you into a white van and offer you some free candy, because they might just be taking you to the Candyman. Alright, bye.
Bye.